An abandoned mail-order bride healed a cowboy, unaware he would repay her with love. Emma's heart raced as the train slowed into the tiny countryside station. She clutched her small suitcase tightly, her fingers brushing the edges of a worn photograph of a ranch she had never visited in person. The idea of becoming a mail-order bride had always seemed like a strange dream, but the promise of a new life, far away from the crowded streets and constant noise of the city, had pulled her toward it. She had imagined wide fields, the smell of fresh grass, and quiet nights under stars so bright they made the city lights seem dull in comparison. She had imagined a man waiting for her, someone who would bring warmth, companionship, and perhaps even love. The platform was nearly empty, the wooden boards creaking under her boots. She scanned the area for the figure she had been told to expect, but the train hissed and sighed, and there was no one in sight. A small town stretched around the station, a few shops and houses that seemed to have been there forever. The wind blew across the open fields, carrying the scent of hay and earth. Emma's heart sank. She had expected a welcome, maybe even a smile from the man whose letters had filled her with hope. But now she was alone. Her first instinct was to call the train company to demand someone help her, but the small station offered no phone, no assistance, no hint of guidance. Every step she took on the gravel path felt heavier than the last. She wondered if she had made a mistake, if she had misunderstood the letters that had felt so sincere. She had trusted him, trusted someone she had never met in person, and now she stood in a place where the horizon stretched endlessly and her dreams seemed to vanish into the sky. Emma's pride fought against her fear. She reminded herself that she could not return home right away. She had no money for another train, no plan for lodging, and nowhere to go. The nearest inn was several miles away, and the thought of walking that distance in her dress, with the sun dipping behind the distant hills, made her shiver. She adjusted her bag on her shoulder and began to walk slowly, hoping that maybe the cowboy, or whoever he was, might still appear. But as the hours passed, the hope that had carried her melted into a quiet dread. The town seemed to watch her silently. Windows were shuttered against the cold evening air, and the few people she did see hurried past her with polite nods but no questions. She tried to ask for directions to the ranch, but the locals gave vague gestures and murmured in ways she could barely understand. Emma's stomach tightened. She had come here expecting kindness, expecting guidance, but instead she felt like an outsider, a stranger in a land that was supposed to welcome her. When night fell, she found herself standing before the ranch she had seen in the photograph, the building now dark and silent. The thought of entering without anyone there made her hesitate. The letters she had received had promised warmth and a home, but now the door stood shut, uninviting. She pressed her hand against the cool wood, feeling a mix of fear and longing. Her eyes scanned the horizon, hoping for a familiar figure, a light in the window, anything that would signal that she was not alone. But there was nothing. She spent that night on a nearby bench under the stars, shivering despite her coat. The silence was profound, broken only by the occasional rustle of the wind through the trees and the distant sound of cattle. Emma tried to remember the advice her mother had once given her. Life will test you, Emma. It will not always be kind, but your strength will carry you through. She repeated the words like a mantra, trying to calm the storm of anxiety inside her. She had always imagined herself brave, but bravery felt small against the vast loneliness of this place. Morning brought little relief. Emma woke stiff and cold, the bench beneath her aching, her suitcase damp from the night air. She decided she had to find work, even temporary work, to survive. The thought of leaving the ranch behind, of abandoning the dream entirely, was painful, but she had no choice. She walked into the small town, asking for any employment. The townspeople were polite but skeptical, and she realized that a young woman alone in a rural town was often treated with suspicion. Yet, one kind shopkeeper offered her a position helping with household chores for a family nearby. It was small and it paid little, but it gave her a sense of purpose and a reason to move forward. As she worked, Emma's thoughts often returned to the ranch and the cowboy who had promised her this life. She did not know why he had abandoned her, whether it was a mistake, a miscommunication, or something more troubling. She could not understand the silence from the man she had imagined would be her partner. But each day, as she washed dishes, tended to small tasks, and helped where she could, she built a quiet resilience. The town may have seemed distant and the ranch empty, but Emma refused to let despair claim her entirely. One afternoon, as she gathered eggs from a small henhouse at the edge of the town, she noticed a figure on the horizon, a man riding toward the ranch. Her heart skipped. Could it be him? Her legs felt weak, but she forced herself to walk steadily toward the approaching figure, hoping she would not be mistaken again. The man's silhouette grew larger, and Emma noticed the familiar posture she had seen in the letter's sketches, strong, capable, and yet tired. When he finally dismounted and approached her, there was a quiet hesitation in his eyes. He was real. He was here. Jack, the cowboy, looked at Emma with a mixture of surprise and apology. His eyes softened as he took in the small suitcase, the tired but determined figure standing before him, and the quiet strength that had allowed her to survive the night alone. He had not intended to abandon her. Circumstances beyond his control had delayed him, but he realized only now the fear and confusion his absence had caused. Emma's anger and disappointment were evident, but she noticed a flicker of something else, a recognition that perhaps this man could be different from her fears, that maybe he, too, carried burdens and regrets. Jack offered her a place in the ranch house, a simple meal, and a chance to rest. Emma hesitated, unsure whether to trust him, but the exhaustion in her limbs and the hope for a new beginning guided her steps. As they walked toward the ranch, the wind whispered through the tall grass, carrying the scent of freedom and possibility. She did not yet know what the future held or whether her heart would heal, but for the first time since arriving, she felt the stirrings of hope. That evening, as they sat by the fire in the small ranch house, Emma and Jack shared quiet conversation. She learned a little about his life, his challenges on the ranch, and the reasons for his delay. Jack listened to her story as well, and in her words, he saw resilience, courage, and a quiet determination that he admired deeply. The night passed slowly, filled with the soft glow of the fire and the tentative connection between two people who had come together by chance, but shared the possibility of a future. Emma went to sleep that night with a mixture of relief and uncertainty. She had survived abandonment, faced the unknown, and found herself in a place that was both strange and promising. She did not yet know if love would bloom or if trust could grow between them, but she had found something equally valuable: strength, courage, and the realization that she could face life's challenges head-on. As the stars twinkled outside the window, Emma closed her eyes, feeling the soft promise of a new beginning. The ranch, the town, the distant fields, all of it was unfamiliar, but it was now a place where she could choose to stay, to heal, and perhaps to find a love that was worth the wait. And somewhere in the shadows of the hills, Jack watched the firelight flicker against the walls, thinking of the young woman who had arrived alone, brave, and unwavering. He knew that he had a chance to make amends, to repay her resilience with the care and attention she deserved. The first chapter of their story had ended in uncertainty, but the next chapter, though unwritten, held the quiet promise of connection, trust, and perhaps love. The morning sun rose over the ranch, painting the fields in golden light. Emma stirred awake to the sounds of chickens clucking and distant hooves on the dirt path. She stretched, feeling the ache of yesterday's long walk, but also a quiet determination. She had survived being abandoned. She had found the ranch and Jack. Now she needed to find her place here, even if it was uncertain. Breakfast was quiet. Jack prepared a simple meal of eggs, toast, and fresh milk. Emma helped where she could, chopping vegetables and pouring tea. She noticed how careful he was, the precision in his movements, the way he watched the sunrise as if he were drawing strength from it. Jack was strong, yes, but there was a subtle sadness in his eyes that Emma couldn't ignore. She realized he carried a burden she couldn't yet understand, a weight that made him distant, even now. Over the next few days, Emma began her routine at the ranch. She rose with the sun, fed the animals, cleaned the stables, and helped with chores she had never imagined doing before. Each task tested her, but it also gave her a sense of purpose she had not felt in the city. The work was hard, exhausting, and sometimes frustrating, but there was satisfaction in seeing the results of her efforts: the neat rows of hay, the calm cows, the orderly stables. Jack watched her quietly during this time. At first, he didn't speak much, only giving instructions when necessary. Emma noticed the tension in his posture, the way he measured each word, as if he feared saying the wrong thing. But there were moments when he let his guard down, a faint smile when a calf finally drank from a bucket, a soft laugh when Emma tripped over a rake. She began to see the man beneath the cowboy exterior, someone kind, patient, and deeply tied to the land he loved. Emma herself began to open up in small ways. She shared stories of the city, of her family, and of the life she had left behind. She spoke about her dreams and fears, and though Jack often listened more than he spoke, she sensed he was learning to trust her presence. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but slowly a bond was forming between them, a connection built on shared effort, mutual respect, and quiet companionship. One afternoon, a storm rolled in from the west, dark clouds covering the sky. The wind picked up, rattling the windows, and Emma noticed the animals growing restless. Jack's expression tightened as he hurried to secure the barn doors. Emma followed, carrying extra feed and water, helping wherever she could. In the chaos of the storm, she realized something important. She was no longer just surviving. She was participating, contributing, and proving her worth not just to herself, but to the ranch and Jack. When the storm finally passed, the air smelled of wet earth and grass. The sky cleared just enough for the sun to shine through, casting rainbows over the fields. Jack and Emma stood together, exhausted but satisfied with their work. There was a silence, comfortable and unspoken, a shared understanding that they had faced the challenge together. Emma felt a warmth in her chest, a sense that she could be part of this life, even if love had not yet found its way into her heart. In the following weeks, Emma discovered more about Jack's past. She learned of his struggles, the loss of his parents at a young age, the responsibility of running the ranch alone, and the moments of loneliness that had shaped him. She understood that his heart had been closed for years, not because of cruelty, but because of fear. Fear of loss, fear of being hurt, and fear of letting anyone close enough to see his pain. Emma realized that if she was to find a place in his life, she would need patience, understanding, and courage. Jack, in turn, began noticing Emma's quiet strength. She didn't complain about the hard work, didn't demand attention, and faced challenges head-on. Her resilience impressed him. There were moments when he caught himself watching her, the way her hands moved as she worked, the focus in her eyes, and the determination in her step. He felt a strange mixture of admiration and respect, emotions he had not allowed himself to feel for years. She was different from anyone he had ever known, and he could not ignore it. One evening, Jack asked Emma to join him on a walk through the fields. The sun was low, casting long shadows over the land. As they walked, he spoke softly about the ranch, about the animals, and about the responsibilities that weighed heavily on him. Emma listened, offering small words of encouragement, sharing her own thoughts about the land and life she had never imagined having. They laughed at little things, a cow's stubbornness, a broken fence, and for the first time, Jack felt a genuine ease with someone. Emma noticed the change in him. He was still guarded, still careful with his emotions, but the walls around his heart were slowly crumbling. She felt a quiet satisfaction in knowing that her presence was helping him, that her kindness and willingness to help had meaning. It was not a dramatic or sudden shift, but a steady, patient healing that happened in the small moments, sharing chores, walking together, watching the sunset. One particularly challenging day, a calf became trapped in the mud near the edge of the field. Emma saw it struggling, panicked and frightened, and without hesitation she ran to help. Jack followed, but Emma took the lead, guiding the animal to safety. Her bravery amazed him, and he felt a deep gratitude for her courage. That evening, as they cleaned up and cared for the other animals, Jack's eyes softened when he looked at her. He did not speak of it immediately, but inside, he knew she had earned his respect, his trust, and perhaps even his admiration. Life on the ranch settled into a rhythm. Each day brought new challenges and new rewards. Emma continued to grow stronger, more confident, and more capable. She learned to ride horses, mend fences, and even handle the occasional stubborn livestock. Jack watched with quiet pride, occasionally offering advice, sometimes teasing her gently when she struggled. Their days were long and often tiring, but the shared work created a bond that neither had expected. Jack began to notice how Emma's presence brightened the ranch. She laughed easily when a playful animal startled her, smiled warmly when the sun touched her face, and offered comfort when things went wrong. Her patience and kindness slowly opened his heart, and he realized that her influence extended beyond simple tasks. She was healing him in ways he had not anticipated, showing him that trust, care, and companionship could exist without pain or betrayal. Emma, too, felt a shift within herself. She no longer thought of Jack as the man who had abandoned her. Instead, she saw someone struggling, someone human, someone in need of patience and understanding. She began to care for him not because of promises or letters, but because of the person he was, complex, strong, and flawed, yet willing to face his challenges with integrity. As the weeks passed, small gestures began to speak volumes. Jack would leave fresh flowers for her in the kitchen, offer her the first sip of coffee in the morning, or take a moment to ask her about her day. Emma noticed, of course, but did not push for more. She knew trust was earned slowly, and she was willing to wait, to allow the bond between them to grow naturally. The townspeople began to notice the change as well. They saw Emma working tirelessly, standing firm in the face of challenges, and noticed the subtle way Jack seemed to soften in her presence. Whispers of admiration and curiosity spread, but neither Emma nor Jack paid much attention. Their focus was on the work, the animals, and the quiet moments that allowed trust and connection to deepen. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, Emma and Jack sat on the porch, sipping tea. The sky was painted in shades of pink and orange, and the world seemed to pause for a moment. Jack spoke of his hopes for the ranch, his dreams for the future, and the fear he carried when facing it alone. Emma listened carefully, offering encouragement and empathy. It was a simple conversation, yet it held the power of deep connection. For the first time, they were equals in understanding, partners not only in work but in life. Emma realized that she had come a long way from the frightened, abandoned woman who had arrived at the train station weeks ago. She had faced uncertainty, loneliness, and fear, yet she had not faltered. She had helped heal a man who had long believed he could not be healed, and in doing so, she discovered her own strength, courage, and capacity for compassion. Jack, watching her, knew he had found someone extraordinary. He had been closed off for so long, afraid to let anyone see the pain he carried. But Emma had entered his life and gently opened the doors he had kept shut. Her presence was a balm to his soul, and though he had not yet expressed it fully, he knew he would find a way to repay her kindness, trust, and patience. Life on the ranch continued, simple yet profound, filled with challenges and rewards, laughter and quiet reflection. Emma and Jack were no longer two strangers thrown together by chance. They were becoming partners in the truest sense, learning from one another, supporting each other, and discovering that healing could happen in the smallest gestures, the shared work, and the gentle acknowledgement of each other's strength. And as the stars twinkled above the fields at night, Emma and Jack sat in companionable silence, both feeling a quiet sense of hope. They did not yet know what the future held, but they knew they were stronger together. They had survived the storm of abandonment, faced the challenges of the ranch, and begun the slow, steady process of healing. The bond between them was growing, fragile yet resilient, and full of the quiet promise of something deeper, something lasting, and perhaps something even more beautiful: love. Life on the ranch had grown into a rhythm, one that was both comforting and challenging for Emma and Jack. They worked side by side, morning to evening, and slowly, without either of them fully realizing it, their connection had deepened. But even as their bond grew, tension began to build, a tension neither wanted to admit aloud. Jack's pride and Emma's lingering fears created a quiet strain, subtle yet palpable, like a storm brewing just beyond the horizon. One morning, Jack asked Emma to help him check the fences along the far pasture. The wind was sharp, cutting through the open fields, and Emma shivered despite her coat. As they walked, Jack seemed quieter than usual, his brow furrowed. Emma sensed a weight in the air, a heaviness she couldn't quite name. She tried to engage him in conversation, sharing stories about the small town and the chores they had done, but Jack's responses were short, clipped. Finally, as they reached the far corner of the field, he stopped and turned to her. "Emma," he said carefully, "I need to tell you something." His voice was low, almost hesitant. Emma looked at him, sensing that whatever was coming was important. She nodded, bracing herself. Jack took a deep breath. "I've been thinking a lot about us, about you, about everything, and I realize I've been afraid." His eyes met hers, and Emma saw the raw honesty there. "Afraid of losing someone again, afraid of getting close. Afraid that I might hurt you without meaning to." Emma's heart tightened. She had sensed his fear, the walls he had built around his heart, but hearing it spoken aloud made it real. She wanted to reach out to assure him that she understood, that she cared, but her own fear rose up. "Jack, I came here with my own fears," she said softly. I've been abandoned, left alone, not knowing what would happen to me. I don't want to be hurt again." They stood in silence, the wind rustling through the tall grass, the distant sound of cows lowing in the fields. It was a moment of truth, one that demanded honesty from both of them. They realized that love and trust were not automatic. They had to be earned, nurtured, and protected. Emma felt a surge of compassion for Jack, understanding that his fears were not a reflection of her, but of his own past. And Jack realized that Emma's courage and resilience were a gift he could not take for granted. Days passed, and the tension lingered, though it was now mixed with a quiet determination. They continued to work together, but there was a new awareness in their interactions. Small gestures, offering an extra scarf, helping each other lift heavy buckets, sharing quiet moments by the barn spoke volumes. Each act was a step toward understanding, toward trust, toward the possibility of something more. Then came a challenge that would test them both in ways they had not anticipated. One afternoon, as they worked near the edge of the pasture, a storm began to gather. The sky darkened quickly, clouds rolling in from the mountains. The wind picked up, whipping the tall grass and making the animals restless. Emma noticed the first signs of panic among the horses. They began to stamp and neigh, their instincts telling them danger was near. Jack barked instructions, but the storm was faster than their preparations. A young horse broke free from the corral, running toward the cliff's edge. Emma's heart leapt into her throat. Without thinking, she ran after it, calling its name, trying to guide it back to safety. Jack followed, but he knew she had taken the lead. Her courage and quick thinking were remarkable, and he felt a surge of admiration mixed with fear for her safety. The horse skidded near the edge, hooves digging into loose soil. Emma reached it just in time, placing herself between the animal and danger. She spoke softly, soothingly, guiding it away from the cliff. Jack arrived moments later, helping steady both Emma and the horse. The danger passed, but the adrenaline lingered. They stood together, breathing heavily, their hands brushing as they checked the horse. For a moment, neither spoke. Words were unnecessary, their eyes said everything. That night, after the storm had passed, they sat by the fire in the ranch house. The firelight flickered, casting warm shadows across the room. Emma felt a mixture of relief and pride, relief that the horse was safe, pride that she had acted without hesitation. Jack, watching her, felt something he had never allowed himself to feel fully, deep admiration and a stirring of affection. He realized that her courage, her quick thinking, and her resilience were not just qualities he respected, they were qualities he loved. Yet even in this closeness, conflict remained. Jack's pride sometimes made him distant. He feared expressing his feelings too openly, fearing rejection or misunderstanding. Emma, on the other hand, struggled with trust. She had been abandoned once, and though she wanted to believe in Jack, her heart was cautious. Each time they grew closer, a small doubt would creep in. Would he leave? Would something go wrong? One afternoon, a misunderstanding escalated their tension. Jack had been planning a new irrigation system for the pasture, but Emma had suggested a different approach. His pride flared. He did not like being questioned, even by someone he trusted. Their words grew sharp, voices raised in frustration. Emma felt hurt not by the disagreement itself, but by the fear that Jack might judge her for her opinions. Jack, in turn, felt frustrated that she questioned him, even when her ideas were meant to help. After the argument, silence fell between them. They worked in separate areas of the ranch, the weight of unspoken words heavy in the air. Emma wondered if she had made a mistake in staying, if she had misread his intentions. Jack wondered if he had pushed her too far, if his pride had jeopardized the bond they were slowly building. Both felt the sting of doubt, the tension between fear and desire, between pride and love. That evening, Jack could no longer bear the silence. He found Emma sitting by the barn, the sunset casting golden light across her face. He approached slowly, his heart pounding. "Emma," he said softly, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you feel small or dismissed. I've been trying to protect myself, but I see now that I can't do that with you." Emma looked at him, her eyes reflecting both hurt and hope. "Jack, I understand your fear. I have mine too, but I don't want to let it control us. I want to trust you if you're willing to trust me in return." Jack took her hand gently, a silent promise passing between them. "I am," he said. "I want to learn. I want to try." The next days were filled with quiet gestures of repair. They worked together with renewed focus, communicating openly and sharing responsibility. The emotional walls that had kept them apart were slowly crumbling, replaced by a bond built on respect, courage, and shared experience. They laughed more, shared small stories, and began to enjoy the quiet comfort of companionship. One evening, as they walked along the fence line, Jack stopped and looked at Emma. The sky was painted in soft pinks and oranges, the air cool and fragrant with the scent of the earth. "Emma," he said, "I don't know how to say this, but I think I've been falling for you, slowly in ways I didn't expect. You've healed parts of me I didn't even know were broken." Emma felt her chest tighten, a mix of fear and longing. "Jack, I feel the same, but I'm still afraid. Afraid of losing what we have, afraid of being hurt again." He reached out, taking her hand in both of his. "We'll take it one day at a time. I promise, no more running, no more hiding. We face everything together from now on." In that moment, under the fading light of the setting sun, Emma and Jack felt the quiet shift from trust to something deeper. Their bond had been tested by fear, pride, and circumstance, but it had survived. They were no longer just a woman who had been abandoned, and a cowboy burdened by past loss. They were partners, learning to navigate life side by side, discovering that love could grow even from uncertainty and pain. The next few weeks were peaceful, filled with work and quiet connection. They continued to face challenges, weather, difficult chores, and the unpredictability of ranch life, but they faced them together, stronger for their shared experiences. Emma noticed that Jack's smiles were more frequent, his laughter easier, his pride tempered by respect for her opinions. Jack noticed that Emma's confidence had grown, her fears easing as trust and love took root. And as the stars shone over the fields at night, Emma and Jack often sat together on the porch, sharing dreams and hopes. The storm of doubt and conflict had passed, leaving behind a bond strengthened by courage, understanding, and patience. They had faced the emotional climax of their journey, the confrontation with fear, pride, and doubt, and had emerged with a connection that promised love, respect, and a future built together. Though they did not know what challenges lay ahead, they were ready. Ready to face them together, ready to trust, ready to build a life filled with companionship, shared purpose, and the quiet, growing warmth of love. The ranch had become more than a place of work. It had become a place of healing, growth, and the beginning of a story neither of them had expected, but both would treasure forever. The first light of dawn spilled over the horizon, casting a warm glow across the ranch. Emma stood on the porch, watching the sun rise, feeling the soft breeze on her face. The past weeks had been a journey of discovery, trust, and courage. She had arrived at the ranch as a woman abandoned and uncertain, but now she felt a deep connection to the land, to the animals, and most importantly, to Jack. Jack emerged from the barn, carrying a small bucket of feed for the animals. His eyes met hers, and for the first time there was no hesitation, no fear. Just a quiet warmth, a shared understanding that they had survived the storms, both literal and emotional, that had once seemed insurmountable. "Morning," he said softly, his voice carrying a gentle familiarity. "Morning," Emma replied, smiling. It was a smile that came from the heart, free of worry and full of confidence. She had learned to trust herself and the life she was building here. And now she trusted Jack in a way she had never imagined possible. Their days continued in a rhythm that was both comfortable and rewarding. They worked the fields together, tended to the animals, and repaired fences side by side. Each task strengthened their bond, each shared laugh, each small victory added to the foundation of their relationship. Emma noticed how Jack's eyes would linger on her when she wasn't looking, a soft admiration that made her heart flutter. Jack noticed the way Emma moved through the chores with ease and care, her laughter like a song that brightened even the most tedious work. One afternoon, Jack suggested they take a break from the chores. "There's something I want to show you," he said, a rare hint of excitement in his voice. Emma followed him to the edge of the pasture, where a small clearing opened up to a panoramic view of the rolling hills. The sun was low, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Jack had cleared a small area, placed a few chairs, and even set up a small picnic. Emma's eyes widened in surprise. "Jack, you did all this?" she asked, touched by the effort he had made. "I wanted to show you that this place, this life, can be ours," he said. He gestured to the horizon. "Everything we've worked for, everything we've built together, it's just the beginning." They sat together, sharing a simple meal, laughing and talking about the future. For the first time, the uncertainty that had once shadowed their lives seemed distant. Emma realized that she had found not just a companion in Jack, but a true partner, someone who respected her, valued her courage, and shared in her dreams. As the sun set, Jack took Emma's hand in his. "Emma," he said, "I know we've faced a lot. I know there's been fear, doubt, and misunderstanding, but I want you to know I care for you more than I can say. You've brought light to my life, and I want to spend every day proving how much you mean to me." Emma felt tears welling in her eyes. "Jack, I feel the same. You've shown me kindness, patience, and trust. You've helped me grow, and I've come to care for you deeply." In that moment, they both understood that the bond they shared was more than friendship or companionship. It was love, a steady, deep, and enduring love that had grown from trust, courage, and shared experiences. They leaned toward each other, and their first kiss was gentle, tender, and full of the promise of a future together. It was a kiss that spoke of forgiveness, understanding, and the joy of finding someone who truly cared. The days that followed were filled with warmth and laughter. Emma and Jack worked side by side, but now with a new energy, a sense of joy that came from knowing they were building a life together. They planned small projects for the ranch, mended old fences, and even planted a small garden. Each shared task, each moment of cooperation, deepened their connection and strengthened their love. One morning, a group of townspeople visited the ranch, curious to see the progress and the partnership they had heard about. They watched as Emma and Jack worked seamlessly, their communication unspoken yet perfect. It was clear to everyone that these two had grown inseparable, not just in work but in heart. Emma felt pride in how far she had come, not just in surviving abandonment, but in finding a place where she belonged, where her presence mattered, and where her courage had been rewarded. Jack noticed the pride in her eyes and felt a swell of love and respect. He knew that Emma had given more than her strength. She had given her trust, her patience, and her heart. And he intended to honor it every day, proving that love was not just in words but in actions. Life was not without its challenges. Storms still came, chores were never-ending, and the unpredictability of ranch life required constant attention. But Emma and Jack faced these obstacles together, their bond unshaken. Emma learned to anticipate Jack's needs, and Jack learned to value Emma's insights and judgment. Their relationship was a partnership in the truest sense, built on respect, trust, and shared responsibility. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Emma reflected on her journey. She had come to this place abandoned, uncertain, and afraid. She had survived nights of loneliness and fear, faced the unknown with courage, and now found herself in a life filled with trust, partnership, and love. She realized that every hardship had led her here to this moment, to this man who valued her and cared for her deeply. Jack, watching Emma, felt a profound gratitude. He had not known how much he needed someone like her, someone who could see him, understand him, and help him heal. Emma had brought light to his life in ways he had never imagined, and he was determined to spend the rest of his days repaying her kindness with love, respect, and devotion. The turning point came when they decided to celebrate their bond in a simple yet meaningful way. Jack cleared a small area near the barn, decorating it with lanterns and wildflowers from the field. Emma arrived, surprised and moved by the gesture. "Jack, this is beautiful," she said, her voice soft with emotion. "I wanted to show you that everything we've faced, everything we've built is just the beginning," Jack said. He took her hands in his, looking into her eyes with unwavering sincerity. "Emma, will you continue this journey with me? Will you stay by my side, not just as a partner in the ranch, but in life?" Emma's heart swelled. She had dreamed of love, of trust, of belonging, but never imagined it could feel so real, so steady, and so safe. "Yes, Jack," she said, tears of joy in her eyes. "I will." That night they danced slowly under the lanterns, the stars above witnessing the beginning of their life together. The ranch, once a place of fear and uncertainty, had become a home filled with laughter, love, and mutual respect. Emma realized that she had not only healed Jack, but had also healed herself. The abandonment she had feared, the loneliness she had endured, had led her to this moment of true connection and love. In the weeks that followed, life continued on the ranch, but with a new sense of purpose and joy. Emma and Jack worked together seamlessly, their love deepening with each passing day. They laughed, planned, and dreamed, knowing that challenges would come, but confident that they would face them together. Every chore, every sunrise, every quiet evening by the fire became a testament to their commitment to each other. Emma often reflected on the journey that had brought her here. The train ride, the abandonment, the nights of fear and uncertainty, and the slow, steady building of trust. Each moment had shaped her, taught her resilience, and led her to a love that was patient, kind, and enduring. She had come to the ranch expecting uncertainty, and she had found everything she needed: courage, partnership, and the quiet, lasting power of love. Jack, too, reflected on the journey. He had learned to open his heart, to trust, and to appreciate the value of a partner who could stand beside him through challenges. Emma had shown him strength, patience, and the transformative power of love. He knew that every day forward was an opportunity to honor her trust and devotion, to repay her with kindness, care, and unwavering support. The ranch thrived under their combined efforts. Animals were healthy, fences were strong, and the land bore the marks of care and dedication. But the greatest growth was not in the land or the work. It was in the bond between Emma and Jack. Their love was no longer fragile or tentative. It was steady, resilient, and enduring, built on a foundation of trust, courage, and shared experience. And so life continued on the ranch, full of work, laughter, and love. Emma and Jack faced each day together, side by side, knowing that the hardships they had endured only made their bond stronger. They had found healing in each other, and in that healing they had found a love that was patient, enduring, and true. As the stars shone above the fields, Emma and Jack often sat together on the porch, reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. The ranch, once a place of fear and uncertainty, had become a home filled with warmth, laughter, and love. Emma knew that she had been abandoned once, but now she was found. And Jack knew that he had been closed off, but now his heart was open. Together, they had created something lasting, something real, something filled with hope and promise for the future. Their story was no longer just about survival. It was about love, partnership, and the quiet strength that comes from trusting and caring for someone with all your heart. And as the wind whispered through the fields and the fire crackled in the hearth, Emma and Jack knew, without doubt, that they had found what they had both been searching for: a home, a partner, and a love that would endure through all of life's challenges.